Welcome everyone. This is the Jenkins Platform SIG meeting, and today we're on March 10, 2026. And today around the virtual table, just Salman and I. Hello, Salman. If others join, we'll welcome them accordingly. On the agenda today, we have Windows MSI installer. I was hoping Mark would show up to tell us more about that, but we'll see if he joins us. Then Java 17 and 21, the status update, and the same for Java 25, the LTS updates. The Docker Hub 429 rate limits error. The container image updates for the Jenkins controller and agents. And we'll talk a little bit about Risk 5. Then we'll tell a few words about the work in progress on images. And that's all I have. Salman, would you have any other subjects you would like to talk about regarding platform?
Nothing specific.
Okay. Thank you. So first subject being Windows MSI installer. So we used to have some problems last time we did so, just because of timelines and deadlines, and so the next one expires in May, and May is almost tomorrow. So Mark Waite has been beaten a few years ago, and it doesn't want this happens again. So that's why we are starting early this year. Hello, Leo. Let me add you to the list. Thanks for joining. So Mark started something, and he should be back from holiday. So I hope we'll have some news from him pretty soon. We'll see. Now, for Java 17, 21, and 25, so end of this month, you should see in the admin monitor on your Jenkins server that 17 is about to be deprecated somehow. So that will appear in a red box somewhere at the top of your screen. That's what should happen. Of course, I haven't experienced that because I'm running all my Jenkins instances with Java 25. But anyway, if you're running Java 17, don't panic. It's pretty normal, but you have to think of migrating to Java 21 or 25. Why not? We've been requiring JDK 21 since 2.545, which is a weekly release. For the time being, the latest LTS being 2.541.2 still supports Java 17. And next week, so next one, the 2.541.3 will also support Java 17. The next LTS in 12 weeks also will not support JDK 17 anymore. Java 25 now, it's been a while since last September, and the Jenkins core itself has been compatible with JDK 25 since the 2.534, and plugins are also moving to JDK 25. Mark upgraded them, most of them, in fact, is the one behind the curtain doing all the hard work. And I know my graph is not beautiful at all, but nonetheless, we can see that JDK 25 in purple, violet, is climbing up. So we have more than 350 plugins already building with JDK 25 out of almost 2,000, I know. But it's the work of only one man. So that's pretty good nonetheless. And by the way, if you thought that you were up to date because you're using Java 25, in 2029, users will be warned that Java 25 will be reaching its end of support in the Jenkins project. By then, we should be using the next LTS version of Java, which may be 29, maybe. I just can't remember, but the next one, we'll see that. As I said earlier, the current LTS was released last week, and it was a security release, like the weekly release also last week on Wednesday. And the 541.3 release candidate has been released not a few weeks ago, last week also. And the final release is scheduled for next week on Wednesday. And then I think on the dev mailing list, we have already chosen the next candidate for the next LTS. And so build of the first LTS will begin a few weeks from now. The next subject is not directly linked to the platform SIG, except that it's about Docker. And of course, we are really interested into Docker in this meeting. So that's why I'm putting it there. A few weeks ago, in fact, since January, so it's almost a few months ago, we were having some rate limiting at Docker. And it was pretty annoying because some of our image couldn't be pushed on time. Hervé has been the one mostly working on that, and he detected that we were doing something not as good as we should have. Oh, welcome, Chris.
Hi. Oh, I got a question though. I didn't see an
Go
announcement
ahead.
in the channel, so I thought there was no meeting.
Oh, really? Yeah, I
Yeah,
forgot to
it's
post in the Matrix Gitter channel.
yeah,
My
it
bad.
was very sad.
Yeah, that's my fault. Okay, but anyway, since the latest changes from Hervé, we did not see any more 429 Gitter rate limiting errors, so we shall be good until next time, of course, because this has already happened in the past. Now, we have seen 3 weekly releases since last meeting, the latest being the 554. Yes. We've seen the correction of a few bugs, sorry, and a few items in the maintenance. And as for the dependency update, the usual suspect, we bumped Red Hat Enterprise Linux to 9.7 something, and the update CLI action to the latest version, which doesn't change anything for the end user. It's just internal, cookie of the Docker images. Now, for the SSH agent, we've seen just one new release with just a dependency update of Trixie Linux, and also adding a manifest for Pester and the bump of Pester. So Pester is a build tool for Windows Docker images, or a testing tool, I think, linked to PowerShell. As you may have guessed, I'm not a Windows expert at all. Now, for the Docker agent and inbound agent, we have seen just one release with 2 dependency updates, Trixie and UB9. Now, something that is dear to my heart, we've seen somebody asking for RISC 64-bit image for the Jenkins. What was it, by the way, a controller or agent? I think it was about agent. Yeah, Docker agent. So at least there is somebody else in the Jenkins community obsessed with RISC-V 64, and they even proposed to do something, to do a pull request to help with that case. The problem is we like to test our Docker images and our binaries on real hardware. That's what we do, if I'm not mistaken, with S319X, with PPC64LE. Of course, we can use QEMU, but it's better whenever you have the access to a real hardware machine. So the consensus for the time being is that QEMU will be good enough to start with the RISC-V images. But in the long run, we would have to have 2 RISC-V machines somewhere in the Jenkins infrastructure so that we can be sure that it's working correctly for us. I have approached a cloud provider who happens to supply some RISC-V servers into cloud. We'll see where this goes. I have asked for sponsorship, and the amount is not crazy high. It's $30 per month. So I hope this will work, and so that we will have RISC-V machines in the Jenkins infrastructure. Fingers crossed. Now, for the work in progress on images, we have seen this one, which has been there for a few weeks. I think the add of health check in the Docker file for Alpine, Debian, and Red Hat Enterprise Linux. That's not a bad thing, but this pull request is kind of stale. It hasn't moved still until last month, and not everybody is convinced this is the way to do it. We also have the add environment variable substitution for reference configuration file. Once again, it's some internal kitchen things. Oh, Salman, that was you or not? What's your coincidence? Okay, I take that for no. We also have the add of the custom root CA certificate import support. And yeah, some changes have been asked. The feedback has been taken into account. And well, it's a pretty long discussion. We'll see where this goes. It's not finished as far as I know. And the last one, I think it's by Hervé. Don't use the Jenkins repo variable for tags and publication. It's still in draft, so we don't care that much about that one. It's not ready yet. As for the Docker agent, there are quite a few ones, but nothing groundbreaking, nothing changes for real. I mean, it's just, PR that are discussed or experimental PRs. This one, for example, the add JDK.NET module for Java 25. When we switched to Java 25, we discovered that the way we were building our Docker images with GRE were not working the same way as they used to do before Java 25. In the past, we were just saying, there was a line calling glink. It's binary that takes the existing JDK and that shrinks it somehow in order to have a more compact GRE installation. And in the past, we just say, oh, bring all the modules, and that worked. We gained something around 200 megabytes per installation just by calling glink with all modules. And the result was a smaller Docker image. So that's pretty cool. But for JDK 25, that has changed. You have to give the list of modules. You can't just say all module. That doesn't work. And if you put all the modules, then you don't have the 200 megabytes less in the image size. So that's a problem. That's why we started with the most essential models, and it was good enough for my use cases, but somehow Valentin Delay discovered that Java.NET was missing, and that's the first one. So this PR is there to add back the JDK.NET to the Java 25. But not everybody is convinced by the process. Some people say, I think the most vocal were Damien Duportal and Hervé Lemeur, that, we just can't just try and add a module, expect it won't fail, and then another one, if it fails. That's not very professional, but that's very me. I mean, whatever. So the idea there is to just not use glink anymore until we know more about the complete list of modules that we would need for a working Jenkins in every case. So yeah, that's an interesting one, but I guess it won't be merged anytime soon. And Hervé is also working on two PRs regarding the build from Windows 2025, because up to recently, we were still using Windows 2019 in our Docker images, and it has not been supported since 2024, I guess. So that's not a good idea to have such a deprecated and outdated dependency. So that's why we're trying to move to Windows 2025. But there are a lot of quirks and workarounds and differences between 2019 and 2025. So of course that takes quite a lot of time. Now, for the deprecation and archival of Jenkins CI Docker inbound agents, it has been accepted in January in a previous meeting, but it's still not archived. There is no urgency in doing so, so that's not a problem. nonetheless. And yes, we have dropped all the Windows 1809 images across all the 3 repos for the agent. So now we won't have any new image based on Windows 1809. And the help desk ticket for the adding of JDK 25 to Windows has been closed. So we are good to go. We now have some Windows images for JDK 25. We're at the end of the agenda. Chris, Leo, Salman, would you have anything to add, a subject that I forgot to discuss about?
Nope.
Okay. Let me have a look in the chat. Oh, sorry, you weren't edible. Okay, Salman. So were you the Salman who created the PR I was telling about earlier? And I guess you're not able to be audible once again. Leo is asking, curious if my machine isn't updated to Java by the end of 17 support, would Jenkins not start? It will definitely depend on the version of Jenkins you're using. If you're using an LTS or even a weekly release where you still can run on JDK 17, for example, the latest LTS, which is published now, this one works with Java 17. So when Java 17 won't be supported by Jenkins, if you have not updated your Jenkins version, you would just have, yes, a red panel saying, hey, you know what, you should get rid of Java 17, but Jenkins will work. That's for sure. Nothing will change. But if you want to update to a newer version of Jenkins, and if you download the latest WAR, no, it won't work. By the time we will move the LTS to only the support of Java 21 and 25, of course, it will refuse to start with JDK 17. That's what will happen. So it's depending on the size of your Jenkins server, it could be a good idea to, update it on a regular basis. So it's less difficult to update all the plugins. It's less difficult to update your version of Java and so on. As I said earlier, the current LTS release support Java 17, but also Java 21, but also Java 25. So you could switch on your machine to Java 25 now with the current version of Jenkins. And then in the future, you will be able to move to the new LTS version depending on Java 21, but still running on Java 25. I hope I made myself clear about that. Thanks for the question, Leo. Okay, if there is no other question, let's wrap it up and see you 2 weeks from now. The video should be available 24 to 48 hours from now on YouTube, and the meeting minutes will be posted on community.jenkins.io. Until next time, have fun with Jenkins. Bye-bye.
Thank you.